the statues, as you can see, which are coming up in Bombay right now, that is of no use. Instead, they could put it up to get some new college or something around which provides you for master's degrees and, you know, at a lesser rate.
I really feel that the union budget should allot more budget for women empowerment, because as we all know, women are in a minority right now and they need to be helped out. And for that, we should have more resources, because that would be helping in the employment generation as well as helping them to create more finance options for them and their families.
Welcome back. In just about 14 hours from now, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will present Union Budget 2020-2021. Many are calling it the make or break budget, but then almost every single time it sounds like that. Of course, there is no denying the fact that this one is going to be extremely crucial, keeping in mind that we are in the midst of an economic slowdown and there is really no other way to define what our economy is witnessing right now. So it becomes extremely essential for the government to really chart out a path for the country's growth to be revived, for us to get back on the fast growth route that we were on. Now, through this week, we have been bringing you various focus points, from jobs to consumption, from the banking mess. And tonight we focus on something very interesting. But first up, let me tell you what the economic survey, the report that's presented by India's chief economic advisor, had to say today. And these are simply few of the highlights and takeaways from that report that's been submitted. According to this economic survey, the recovery for our economy is likely to have begun already. The second half of the current financial year is where the growth will pick up again. According to the economic survey, next year, this financial year 21, we may clock a growth of 6 to 6.5%. Now, at many different points, the chief economic advisor is indicating and suggesting that the government keep its fiscal deficit constraints aside, go ahead and borrow more money next year, or that will have to happen because A, the tax revenues are not going to be as great as expected, and B, government needs to spend a lot more to get the economy going. Now, if you've been following me in our conversations, we have been saying this for a while. The chief economic advisor has also said that if there is lower capital expenditure spending, if the government spends lesser on infrastructure and other places, then that may adversely hurt our growth. He's also suggested that we rationalize food subsidy. How should the government save costs? Cut down on your food subsidy. The one big concern is that the April to November indirect tax collections are muted, and the government is now, or at least the chief economic advisor is admitting that now. But he also goes on to say that the industrial activity is now showing signs of a pickup. The big concern, though, remains the global slowdown and how that will continue to impact us. That the global trade tensions, the whole US-China tension and etc. could also impact our exports and thereby impact our economy. And then the last highlight, non-tax revenue growth from various other avenues such as divestment. Those cannot be sustained at such a high level year after year. So the government will have to come up with another solution. But most of this we've already touched upon, so I don't want to go into the details of it already. What was very interesting in today's economic survey was Thalinomics. The chief economic advisor says that it's the best way to relate economics to the common person. Now, what is Thalinomics? And this is the sense that I could make from the economic survey itself and what the CA said in his news conference and on his Twitter, the word that's been coined in this report. It is meant to indicate affordability of food. So what it essentially does, Thalinomics, and we'll give you the data points, it quantifies the price of an average thali, an average food plate per person in an Indian household. How is it calculated, the cost, the price of this thali? Well, one of the indicators that is used, of course, is the Consumer Price Index. So the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, across 80 centers in 25 states and union territories was actually used to calculate this data. And then they calculated cost of an average vegetarian thali and a non-vegetarian thali. And the government and the chief economic advisor in his report says that the affordability of this food plate has actually gone up. The affordability has gone up more for vegetarians and a little less for the non-vegetarians, though if you really round it up, vegetarians, those who are having these veg thalis, are actually saving 10,000 rupees per year because the cost of food, the cost of the thali has gone down. And if in a household there are two non-veg thali eaters, then they are saving 11,000 rupees 787 per year because the cost of food has gone down. What does this really mean? And is this a reflection of the economy, of the food prices? How are we to interpret it? We're simply going to try and decode Thalinomics for you tonight. So let's say good evening to Vishwas Pathak, spokesperson for the BJP, Mohan Guruswamy, senior economist and chairman of the Center for Policy Alternatives, Vikas Rawal, professor for Center for Economic Studies and Planning at JNU, Ashwini Mahajan, national co-convener for Swadeshi Jagran Manch, and Avik Saha, convener of the Jai Kisan Andolan, that's the farmers' wing of the Swaraj Abhiyan. So actually, let me first up go across to Mr. Vishwas Pathak and ask him this question. Mr. Pathak, what am I to do with this Thalinomics indicator, especially at a time where food inflation is shooting through the roof?
No, Tanvi, you have to look at this economic survey in totality, not only chapter 11 on Thalinomics. This economic survey and whatever is discussed about talks about how this government for last 6 years has contained inflation to the range of 5%. And also how the FRPB norms are being adhered to, like fiscal deposit and all that thing. Now, this Thalinomics is talking about the period between 2006 to 2019. What it essentially says that 2014 onwards, because of the various measures taken by this government toward the farmers, then the Inam project, or maybe farmers, this insurance project, then various advisories which are given in anticipation, all this has resulted into saving for the farmers. So basically, inflation in terms of food has been contended, and thereby how much was the saving, that is what they are trying to show it.
But, okay. So let me ask Mr. Mohan Guruswamy. Mr. Mohan Guruswamy, effectively, it seems to me, and you can tell me if I'm right, that when we are all talking about inflation and, food prices going up one more time, here is the government that's telling us, but don't look at what's happened just in the last 6-8 months or 1 year. Take a look at what's happened in the last 5 years, and you know what? You've actually been saving 10,000 rupees per year if you're a vegetarian.
Well, it's the calculations are dubious at best, because what really matters is what it costs now. It's not the opportunity cost you're paying, opportunity loss, but what you are actually paying now. And what you're paying now is food inflation is 26% year over year, and vegetable inflation is 62% year over year. And that is the reality. And that is what the common man, who let alone a thali doesn't get 2 square meals a day, it has to contend with. So all this Thalinomics business is very specious. At a time when real rural wages are coming down and the growth has stopped and food prices are going up, how is a person supposed to live? And that is the question. The question is that why are wages coming down? Because there's an oversupply of labor, there are not enough jobs. So he should be talking about creating jobs, not getting into this defensive mode that, our deceleration was less than UPS deceleration or that kind of stuff. We don't want to get into that. We want to know what the problem is now and what you're going to do tomorrow. That's all.
Okay, we want to know what the problem is now and how you're going to fix it tomorrow. Don't give us a comparison of what's happened, previously in the past. That doesn't solve our problem today. Okay, I'll take that point. But I also want to understand, some very interesting points that have come out. And I don't know, Mr. Vikas Rawal, if you can help us decode this. Now, according to this Thalinomics, the price of a veg thali is actually the lowest in the state of Jharkhand. It could cost, and the categorization is 0 to 50 rupees. And then those who are paying 50 to 75 rupees is Himachal, Haryana, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Odisha. And those who are actually paying the most for a veg thali or even a non-veg thali is actually Bihar. And they seem to be paying more than 100 rupees per thali. Now, can you help us understand how does that happen? There are many in my own newsroom who are asking, how are people in Bihar paying more than, people in many other states?
Can I?
Yes.
Before I get to this, I want to clarify something else. And I think your explanation of what economic survey is saying is not exactly correct.
Okay.
What economic survey is saying is that if an industrial worker consumes what National Institute of Nutrition tells people should be consuming, then the industrial worker would have saved a certain amount of money. Okay?
Right.
This is not what you and I are consuming. This is not what even industrial workers are actually consuming. If they consumed what the guidelines tell them to be consuming, then they would be saving a certain amount of money. They would have saved a certain amount of money over a certain, as compared to 2015, let's say. Now, the point is, there are two questions here. Are industrial workers consuming what National Institute of Nutrition says they should be consuming? No, they are not. They can't. They can't afford to be eating fruits and vegetables and dals as National Institute of Nutrition thinks they should be consuming. Secondly, are a lot of people in India getting employed as industrial workers? No, they are not. We know from the employment statistics that have become available that industrial employment has fallen drastically. In fact, proportion of working age people who are employed in anything has fallen quite drastically. So, this calculation is really weird because it is not even talking of actual food people consume, and that's the data that government has concealed, has refused to divulge. It is basically a hypothetical diet being consumed by industrial workers, which is a workforce that is shrinking because of lack of employment. So I don't know what is the meaning of this hypothetical number. I also want to point out that India is the country with largest number of people who are unable to eat adequate amount of food. Food that is adequate to meet the dietary energy requirements for their healthy life. The FAO's latest estimate is 195 million people. If you actually adjust it to the level of energy requirement, because India has a very large proportion of manual workers, this number rises to something like 472 million people in India are unable to consume even the dietary energy, sheer calories that they need to consume to be able to do their day-to-day functioning. Okay, so this is really a travesty that the chief economic advisor puts out a number which is based on recommended diet of people and presents it as if you and I are saving a certain amount of money on our food bill. I mean, this is just a ridiculous number.
Okay. So I'm assuming, since you're saying that you are not convinced with the calculation and the number that's been given, it will be very hard to understand why Jharkhand is at the lowest and the cheapest, and why Bihar thali costs the most.
It's a number about. This is not what people in Jharkhand consume. This is not what people in Bihar consume. You see, that's the point.
Okay.
This is a completely hypothetical number.
Okay. All right.
It's not even what people in Bihar, it's not even what industrial workers in Bihar, what industrial workers in Jharkhand consume. leave aside people, large majority of people in Jharkhand are not industrial workers. Large majority of people in Bihar are not industrial workers. They are not consuming what this recommended diet is. So this tells me nothing about what people in Bihar are spending on food. It tells me nothing about what people in Jharkhand are spending on food. In fact, speaker on the panel has just mentioned it. Look at the consumer price index. That tells you, you look at the food price index. That index tells you what people are spending. And if you look at that, over this year, the food price index has shot up hugely. There's been a huge, steep rise in prices. That's the reality.
Correct.
Now,
Okay.
this hypothetical number is meaningless.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Ashwini Mahajan what he makes of this. Mr. Ashwini Mahajan, what do you make of this cost of thali, and that being a reflection of how much we are spending on food and how much we've actually saved in the last 5 years, apparently thanks to this government?
See,
Yes, go ahead, please. I can hear you.
yeah, yeah. Actually, I'm very happy that at least now the government of the day has realized the importance of the food bundle, which whether an industrial worker or any other worker is really using. And in the past, the governments have been trying to keep the prices of the food lower just to adjust the wages of the industrial workers, so that the industry has to pay lower wages. But not that the case. Now I'm happy that yes, the government is trying to look at how much a consumer, how much an industrial worker or any other worker is spending on his food, and that in a larger policy perspective will help the government to plan how we can keep the prices of the items which the consumers are consuming, so that at least his nutrition requirements are fulfilled. Yes, I agree with the panelists that yes, in this year there has been a sharp increase in the prices of food items, but we should not forget that in the last 5 years, if we compare the last 5 years with the last for the 5 years of the last 5 years of the UPA government, we find that there has been a drastic decline in the prices of the food items, and that has helped the I'm telling you on the basis of the data,
because people had no employment, people had no incomes, there was no demand. There was no demand. People had no money to buy food. So the food prices were falling. Come on.
What I'm saying is the inflation rate has been declining, and we have seen and on average the inflation rate of 3.7%. And you will agree with me, this is the data of the consumer price index. So because of that, the food prices, since they were not increasing at that pace at which they were increasing during the UPA government, there has been a relief to the industrial workers and the workers in general.
Okay.
And I'm happy that at least the government now is talking about this, and it will help the consumers to really keep make up their requirements and fulfill their nutrition.
Okay, all right, okay. But before I go across to Mr. Avik Saha, on the other side, the flip side of this, Mr. Mohan Gauraswamy wanted to come in. Food prices were lower in the first 3 years of this government's tenure. Now they have gone up. Are they to be given credit or to be blamed for that?
Just a quick interjection.
Yes.
The average common Indian family spends 58% of salary on food. And the food inflation has touched 28% in December 2019 and has been going up. And vegetable inflation is 62%. The thali one has become small. The vegetables have gone out of the thali. Even cereals and other things are costing more. So people are actually eating less, and that has been empirically evidenced. Now, most of rural worker families are now down to 2 meals a day. And with a much reduced diet. There was a report recently that hunger has increased, incidence of hunger has increased.
Correct.
Now, inflation could have come down because oil prices came down, cement prices came down, steel prices came down. But that does not help the common man.
Yes.
It's simple as that.
Okay, does this, the one part of the debate is, does this help the common man? Is it really
Swamiji.
reflective of how good the common man is doing in his life and how food has become affordable? The other side, Mr. Avik Saha, is also what it means for the farmers, for the ones who are actually growing this food and selling this food, and if actually, you know, this reflects how their life has improved or not.
I'm not going to get into a debate about the correctness of the data and what is being presented or what is being hidden.
Yes.
I was looking at Thalinomics, and I was wondering why it exists in that chapter in the economic survey. As I've come to understand, the economic survey almost is supposed to tell you in factual terms how the country performed in the previous 12 months, and we build an expectation that based on this survey, budgetary provisions will be made the next day by the ruling government to correct any of the areas that need correction and are matters of concern. The economic survey, to my mind, should not have become a political posturing document. In that extent, Thalinomics shouldn't have existed in this survey at all. Now, I can see straight away there are 7 things that Thalinomics indicates as failures of the government and not successes. First, the government has to have failed in delivering prices to the farmers if food prices have gone down to the consumer, because somebody is paying for the cheaper food. And it has to be only the farmer. It also indicates failure of the government in procuring at MSP from the farmers. Now, the guarantee that remunerative prices will be received and procurement will take place was made by nobody less than the Prime Minister himself on the floor of the Lok Sabha in February 2019, if I remember correctly. Mr. Jaitley was right there next to him. So these 2 failures are stark so far as the farmers are concerned, and the farmers know that they haven't been getting prices, and therefore if prices of food are cheap, well, the farmers stand cursed. What's more important is that this government has conveniently overlooked the nutrition situation of the country.
Yes.
My figures are 58.6% children are suffering from nutritional problems. 53.2% women have the same problem. So are you telling me that a thali where people have saved has been so effective that half the country's women are anemic? More than half the children are anemic. So 25%, or no, that would be 37% of the population are anemic, and you are proud about that, and you include a chapter on Thalinomics in your economic survey?
Well,
I see the other failures also.
Yes.
There is a failure of income generation.
Yes. Okay, if we can take it point by point. And I want to pick up the point of what you said, because I was wondering the same thing, Mr. Avik Saha, why this chapter is really there. So let me ask Mr. Vishwas Pathak. Mr. Pathak, what's the point of telling certain people that they may have saved 10,000 rupees, where We are doing abysmally when it comes to the hunger index. We are doing abysmally when it comes to the nutrition factor of what people are consuming in this country. And respond to what Mr. Rawal was saying, that we don't even know how, how credible this calculation and data is.
So, Tanvi, basically, this economic survey document is something like 280 pages odd document. And we are talking about only chapter 11 on Thalinomics.
Yes,
and discussion is going on as if nothing is there in entire economic survey.
Not at all.
So I think discussion is a little out of context.
No, I read out all the highlights of the economic survey right on top, Mr. Pathak. No, but I said I want to discuss Thalinomics. This debate is about understanding Thalinomics and what is it that we are supposed to do with this information.
No. We are discussing about Thalinomics, but we are raising various topics other than chapter 11. That is what I am trying to point it out. See, all I am trying to say, this government or this economic survey report is trying to show that through various initiatives taken by this government, like Pradhan Mantri Annadata Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchan Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Faisal Soil Health Card, because of these initiatives, there is a gain in efficiency and productivity of the agriculture sector. And therefore, they took the example of 80 such spots all across 25 states, whereby they took the thali as a symbol and compared the rates of the thali from time to time. And it was observed that because of the efficiency increase in efficiency in agriculture sector, productivity in agriculture sector, the rates of the thalis were contained, and in most of the cases it has gone down also.
They are showing
what it also essentially wants to show that earlier inflation rate in UPA, earlier the inflation rate was in double digit, that is 10% or so. Whereas this government contained this inflation rate below 4%.
How?
That is all about it is trying to show.
How did you do that? And why is it back up and food inflation back up
that is what
at 10%?
The productivity of the agriculture, the productivity of the, what I'm saying, the productivity of the agriculture segment and efficiency has gone up because of the various steps taken by this government.
Okay, Mr. Rawal wants to make a point and then Avik sir. Yes, Vikas Rawal.
Either you trust this chapter or you don't trust it.
Yeah. You see, I want to make 3 points. One is that to say that a period of low inflation is necessarily a good period is wrong, because you had a period of low inflation because of a collapse of demand. You had terrible statistics on employment, incomes had plummeted. You basically, people did not have money to buy food. Okay, so people were being squeezed. Now, what does that mean? That people of high food period of high food prices means that people have high incomes? No. Now people are being slapped from both sides. You have no incomes, you have no employment, and food prices are rising. Why food prices are rising? Food prices are rising because government is sitting on obscene amounts of food stocks, creating an artificial deficiency in the food availability in the country, and in fact trying to sell off those food stocks at a loss to exporters who would sell it as animal feed to other countries. So instead of using the food stocks that are available with the government to lower the prices by bringing out these food stocks by way of supplying them through PDS, or running a food for work program, or finding a way of handing them to the poor, you are actually going to feed them to animals of other countries, and that too at a massive loss to FCI. So this whole thing is a disaster, because you have had 5 years of deflation because of demand, lack of demand, lack of employment, and now you have a situation where you have no demand, your employment has collapsed, you are unable to even release your consumption survey data, and your food prices are rising because of this artificial creation of scarcity. Now, to say that this decline in prices that had happened over the decline in inflation that happened over some years had something to do with increase in efficiency is another spin story that is being created. What data do you have to show any increase in productivity at all. You have zero data to show that PM Sinchai Yojana has increased by even 1% of water use efficiency. You have no data to show that. Your ENAM remains on paper. What percent of agricultural produce is sold in ENAM mandis? It's a minuscule fraction. I mean, soil health cards. Have soil health cards resulted in an increase in fertility of soil? What data you have to show that? Nothing.
Okay.
So, this is just a complete figment of somebody's imagination that there's been an increase in productivity, increase in efficiency, and that has resulted in decline in food prices.
Now, let me
Nothing
ask
of the
Mr.
sort.
Okay, Mr.
So I'm
Ashwini
sorry,
Mahajan,
this entire thing is somebody's fiction.
Mr. Ashwini Mahajan, do you have a contrary view on this? Do you believe that the data or this methodology can be used for something better?
You see, I think we are making it a kind of a political discussion to show whether this government has performed on the agricultural front or not. The fact of the matter is there has been efforts on the part of the government to improve the lot of the farmers, and this is for the first time that the government of India. You see, if you look at when I was talking about the nutrition, you see, our pulses production was at 17 million tons for years. But because of the efforts on the part of the government, by offering a higher price, which they didn't pay, I know, but farmers suffered on that account. But there has been an increase, and the government is really trying to make up that. The farmers were paid better. And that's the reason why in one particular year there was an increase by about 50% in the pulses production. And that has helped the protein intake of the people at large. And when we were unable to reduce the prices of pulses to less than 200 rupees a kg, now suddenly the prices could come down to 70, 80 rupees a kg for the general public. And that really helped in the meeting the nutritional requirement, and others even in case of oil seeds. So we should not rubbish about everything what the government has done. The government has not done anything. They are making efforts, and for the first time the government has offered cost plus 50% in MSP. Therefore, we should not make this whole debate as a political debate. We should try and find out the good things about it. That at least the government is talking about the thali economics. They are talking about the price of the food. They are talking about about fulfilling the nutrition requirements, and that should be the takeaway from this chapter. I may not, agree with most of the things of the government, but we should at least appreciate that the government has done something to really address the problems of the people. Most of our people are really, hand to mouth, and their incomes are very, very low. And this, if the government is showing some concerns about the price of the food and the thali, so I think we should welcome that, and it should. We in fact request the government to take this forward. Yes, reduce the prices for the people, and at the same time provide adequate income to the farmers and remunerative prices, cost plus 50% or even more, and do better food management, better facilities for the for storage and warehousing. That should be done. So we should not make it as a political debate that the government has not done anything, the government is rubbish. That is not the way to really run this debate.
Okay, I take your point. I just also want to highlight it to our viewers that, when you say what is this thali, and what basis which we're talking about this Thalinomics, according to the government, the veg menu would have cereal, sabzi and dal, and then in the non-veg menu, obviously there is a non-vegetarian component, and that's how they're calculating the price. So obviously the spices that go into it, the pulses that go into it, the cooking oil, those prices are factored in to then come to this calculation. But Mr. Mohan Guruswamy, the point that you are making versus what Ashwini Mahajan is saying, you are saying it doesn't matter how much we saved in 2015, 2016, 2017. If today the inflation levels for vegetable are at 60%, for pulses is at 15%, for food and beverages it's at 12%. If today we're having to shell out so much more, and burn a big hole in our wallet.
And if your wages are going down, the hole is even bigger.
Provided you have a job.
That is the point. And we need solutions for that. And if you don't have a job, the problem is that you're not creating jobs. The problem is you have no money to invest in capital expenditure, and therefore there's no economic growth. And you've got to get back to that cycle. And this is something which it has taken them 5 years to understand. The economic survey talks about this in passing. And I wish that the focus should be on this instead of specious logic of Thali economics and things like that. And he's got a chapter devoted to hidden hand.
Yes.
Now, as if this is economics 101 and he's teaching us economics about the wonders of the hidden hand. I think the economic survey shows a really of lack of mind. And it's trying to gloss over things which happened in the past few years. And it's a complete travesty. You talk about the state of the economy and what needs to be done for the economy. There's no prescription for that. You tell us we need capital expenditure to go up.
Yes.
We're down at 28% of GDP. How does it go up? How do we take it back to 33, 34, 35, 36, 37? And to those levels in the next few years? How do we do it? You talk about that, they don't talk about that. Where are you going to get more money? Okay, you talk about increasing fiscal deficit. How much can you increase by? You're already at 3.8%. You might go to 5%. So what does 5% give you? 5% gives you another 1.5 lakh crores. There's nothing. You really got to talk about something big to make huge capital expenditures to get us off this rut. We're in a rut now.
Yes.
And if you continue like this, you'll be in a rut for another 5 years. And it seems that in India, only when a real crisis hits you, when everything goes down, when you have no foreign exchange reserves, when you have to sell the gold, then you will come to take a bold, drastic decision. You need to take bold administrative decisions now. Make up for that.
All right. All right. Okay, I take your point. And you know why I wanted to discuss specifically Thalinomics is because it comes down to the prices of food, prices of vegetables, prices of grains. It comes down to how the entire supply chain is being managed so that farmers get their price, but consumers don't have to shell out so much, and these price surges don't happen. None of that has been significantly addressed in the last 5 years. We don't know what will come out in budget tomorrow and if our finance minister addresses that problem. But Mr. Avik Saha, that's essentially where the focus should be. From the farm to fork chain that we continuously talk about, that should be looked at and fixed. Mr. Saha, the question to you, if you could hear me.
I've lost audio. No, I couldn't. Could you just repeat it, please?
No, I was simply saying that the government had promised us a lot in 2014 when it came to fixing the farm to, market supply chain. We haven't seen much in the last 5 years, which is why we still see these kind of price fluctuations. At one point, the farmers are not getting the money, whereas the consumers are having to pay so much.
Thalinomics explains that there is a saving to the consumer to 10,000-11,000 rupees per annum, and it is indicating that therefore, if the income has also dropped, it doesn't matter to that extent. Mr. Mahajan, unfortunately, very uncharacteristically said that the farmers have received their share of the deal. The problem is that the farmers have not got the price, the consumers have had to pay high price, and the chain in between has laughed all the way to the bank. This is the problem that the government steadfastly refuses to address, except in advertisement and gloss. And Mr. Mahajan has joined cause on this and has written to the government several times. I don't know what Mr. Purohit wants to indicate to the audience. He must admit that Thalinomics is an effort to show the consumer that all is well, and it is not. Every consumer knows it. It's bad PR. It shouldn't have been there. And everybody in the country is laughing. But of course, the BJP knows that very few people read the economic survey. So what will come out in the budget tomorrow will be discussed. However, Thalinomics is in bad taste, indicates the betrayal of this government towards farmers and the nonchalance with which this government has dealt with food inflation so far as the consumers are concerned.
Watch what happens to this Thalinomics if it goes beyond simply a thought, perhaps in the mind of the chief economic advisor. If this is actually a concept that gets taken up and followed up by the government, we will have to wait and watch. I'm going to thank all of our panelists for joining us. Suffice to say, viewers, that this is a new interesting concept that the government has taken up, where they're saying if you factor in the price of the food that you eat every day on your plate on an average, and they've divided it into various regions and various states, then this is how much you're paying today versus how much you were paying earlier. And since 2015, you've actually saved 10,000 rupees on a vegetarian thali, and you've actually saved 11,000 odd rupees on a non-vegetarian thali. If you live in the state of Jharkhand, it's probably the cheapest for you. The vegetarian thali will be the cheapest for you, or the cost of food is the cheapest for you. But if you live in Tripura and Bihar, it is the most expensive, with other states like Himachal, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh and Odisha. There the thali cost comes to about 50 to 75 rupees. And in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Telangana, primarily the southern states, along with West Bengal, UP, Assam, Jammu, Kashmir and Punjab, the price is about 70 to 100 rupees. I'm talking about the vegetarian thali, where the government says the affordability has actually improved more. So vegetarians have had a better run since 2015-2016 in comparison to the non-vegetarians, even though as far as the non-vegetarian thali is concerned, government's or CEA's calculation shows that you're probably saving up more than the vegetarians. We'll wait and watch what happens with this information and this concept. For now, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation.
Expect from the budget, this GST has to be reduced and the income tax has to be reduced, and unemployment has increased. The government has to announce some incentives to the small scale industries.
हमारी मोदी सरकार ਨੂੰ सेंटर सरकार ਨੂੰ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਕਿਸਾਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਸਲਾ ਉਠਾਉਣ ਜੀ। ਕਿਸਾਨ ਆਤਮ ਹੱਤਿਆ ਕਰੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਜੀ, ਕਿਸਾਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬੁਰਾ ਹਾਲ ਹੈ ਜੀ।
Before we move on to the next conversation, let's show you one very interesting video that's been uplinked on Twitter by Mumbai police. And this is part of their anti-honking drive. Take a look.
Welcome to the honking capital of the world. Here, people honk even when the signal is red. Savai hai na? Maybe they think that by honking, they can make the signal turn green faster. Samjhatach nahi. We, the Mumbai police, were itching to do something about this. One day, we connected decibel meters to a few signal poles around the city. If the decibel level went over 85 dB, the signal would reset and stay red for longer. Hata basa bomblet. बजाओ बजाओ और जोर से बजाओ और रुको। to honk. That is, if you don't mind waiting. कशी वाटली idea?
Time to tell you a story from Uttar Pradesh that seems straight out of a movie script, but it's not. It's actually real. For over 9 hours, 23 little children were held hostage in a house in Farrukhabad. This began on January 30th, yesterday, at about 2 p.m., where the accused, the captor, invited children, his neighbors, children in that locality, for his daughter's birthday party. Under the pretext of a birthday party, he called all of these children home. About 4 p.m., 22 children reached this party. By 5 p.m., it had become very clear, with the accused himself announcing it from his terrace, that he was holding these children hostage. At about 5:30 p.m., in half an hour, residents actually sent one of themselves, a man from their own group, to speak to this captor, who was holding 23 of their children hostage, to negotiate with him, to understand what he wants, to try and convince him to let the children go. Roughly around that time, viewers, police also reached the spot. Now, this is Farrukhabad in Uttar Pradesh that I'm talking about. By about 6 o'clock, the police had taken over and had started the negotiation process. Unfortunately, at that time, and they didn't perhaps know about it until then, the accused opened fire. He lobbed a low-intensity bomb. Like the locals over there said, gola feka usne. 2 people got injured as he opened fire. By 7:30 p.m., the DGP of Uttar Pradesh had ordered the anti-terror squad to get to the spot, the SWAT team, special forces to get to the spot. At 9:20 p.m., the ATS team reached, and then they took over the entire operation. Then by 10 o'clock, police had brought in the drone to use in this operation. Finally, at 1 in the morning, the children were rescued and their captor, the man who was holding them hostage, killed. Not just this, the accused's wife, in between this operation, tried to escape from the front door. She tried to get out. But those who were standing outside, anxious parents of the children, they gathered there, attacked her, and stoned her, lynched her to death. While the real reason as to why the captor held these children hostage is still not clear, though he had demanded the withdrawal of a murder case against him. Yes, he was a history sheeter. He had several cases against him. But there's also a letter allegedly written by him that is now going viral on social media. This is yet to be verified. But this letter allegedly to the district magistrate says that I am an agricultural laborer, that I work hard to feed my children, and it is difficult for me to take care of my aging mother. The village head denied me a house. I don't even have a toilet yet. My family is forced to defecate in the open. That I have complained several times to the village head. Neither have I got money nor a toilet was built. I have written to authorities several times. So there are two versions. One is that he had problems with the neighbors. He had problems with the forces who had filed this case against him, and he was facing a murder charge that he wanted dropped. The other one is this letter that's doing the rounds, and we're still waiting for the final verdict on why really did he resort to something like this. Perhaps we'll never know, because he is dead and his wife has also been stoned to death. But Alok is joining us with more on this story. Alok, this operation went on for several hours, and justifiably so perhaps, because there were 23 young lives at risk. What can you tell us about what happened in Farrukhabad yesterday?
Yes, Tanvi, in fact, today this big development happened because the bomb disposal squad was in fact called because there were large quantity of ammunition is recovered from his house. That is also one of the developments that happened today. In fact, what we are getting to know, 20 kg of explosives. In fact, he was hiding inside his house and. From where he got collected all these ammunition, nobody knows because he is dead. His wife is also dead. Children are very small. So that is one of the questions that is in fact coming into the mind of the administration and as well as the police. This is what had happened. Apart from that, because he was not having good relations with the neighbors and also he was unhappy with the administration because the way that the letter is now emerging. However, the police says that the letter which he sent to the administration, it is around 1 year ago that he had sent that letter, but now it has emerged and onto the social media as well. And in fact, because he was having various criminal records that includes the murder charges and the theft charges, so he was unhappy with the administration because whenever any case happens, that the police always comes and picks him. So he was also disturbed with that point. These are some of the reasons that he was unhappy with the administration, and in fact, he sometimes also blames the neighbors. In fact, who informed the police that he is hiding at his home. So this is another reason that he was unhappy with the neighbors. So these are the different versions that is coming out. But the actual reason, if you say that what exactly triggered him to, in fact, held these children to hostage,
Yes.
that is not yet certain. However, the police says that their investigations are on.
All right, Alok. Thanks so much for getting us this story. Let's quickly go across to Mr. Arvind Kumar Jain, former DGP of Uttar Pradesh, and Mr. M.N. Singh, former Commissioner of Police for Mumbai, to get some more insights into just how trained and ready are our forces to handle such kind of hostage situations. Mr. Jain, I want to begin with you, considering that this actually happened in Uttar Pradesh. Obviously, they have successfully managed to save all lives, except, of course, the captor himself. But just how prepared and how well trained are our police authorities to handle such situations?
In UP, almost all districts in Uttar Pradesh, they have special operation groups, they have SWAT teams, they have armed units to deal with such situations. This kind of hostage situation, as you know, it's once in 5 years, 7 years, such an incident takes place. We have ATS units very close to Lucknow airport, and land was acquired very close to Lucknow airport, Sarojini Nagar, in Sarojini Nagar area, so that ATS commandos who are stationed very close to airport, they can be rushed to any scene of crime. So we have different units to handle such situations. But if you have a Mumbai-like hostage situation, naturally you will be required to request for NSG commandos and others. But we have commandos and we are prepared for it. Our units are armed with SLRs, INSAS rifles, AK-47s. We have recently discarded 303s. But we are armed with such weapons, and I think yesterday's handling was quite apt. Actually, problem was that 23 children were there. So naturally, you have to take time. You have to tire out the man, and then catch hold of him. So that took time. Otherwise, UP police is capable of handling very tough situations in anti-dacoity operations, and they are trained for that. And this man was not a big time criminal. He was a small time criminal. I think he was slightly mentally disturbed. So unfortunately, he was shot dead.
Mr. M.N. Singh, you know, procedurally, aren't they supposed to cordon off the entire area, get everybody out? You know, from the visuals that we were getting, we could see that the villagers were also standing by. At some point, it seems that the wife tried to escape and she actually got lynched. I mean, there was nobody to get her out safely from there, and the villagers, obviously angry, started throwing stones at her.
Let me begin by complimenting the UP police first. I think they have done a marvelous job by saving the lives of all those 23 children. And also, I think in just about 7 hours, they have completed their operations. UP police deserves to be complimented. As far as you see, this lynching of the wife of this criminal is concerned, you have also to appreciate the sentiments and the psychology of the people whose children were taken hostage and what kind of agony, mental agony they must be going through at that point of time. And therefore, such things are not unlikely. When she was very much in the house herself, she was obviously either not able to control her husband or she was complicit in this. And she tries to run away, and the angry people just pounced upon her. These are things which happen. Should not have happened is another thing, but you have to understand and appreciate the psychology of the people whose children were taken hostage and the village at large. You see, coming to the point of the preparedness of the state police forces, now my understanding is that all the state police forces have there is emergency response teams located at appropriate places, and if an incident like this happens in a small district place like Farrukhabad, the forces can be run in very quickly. And we, particularly after this 26/11 attack in Bombay, when these Pakistanis came and then they attacked the Taj Hotel and the Hotel Oberoi and things like that. You know, most state police forces have developed their own capabilities to deal with such situations. We have the commando forces and quick response teams. I remember when I was police commissioner of Mumbai on 13th December 2001, when the parliament was attacked, even Mumbai police did not have any emergency response teams. We had a small SOS team which was not good enough. So we created an emergency response team called Quick Response Team, and now it has been enlarged, and most states have adopted that and created their own special units. So I think the states are very well prepared because of this emerging terrorist scenario all over the country and the terrorist attacks taking place particularly in big cities. The states have woken up, and with the help of the Government of India's modernization programs, funds have been coming to the states, and the states have created their own forces to deal with all such emergency situations.
All right, it was a pleasure to have both of you join us for this brief conversation and give us your insights into, just how prepared our services and our forces are. Fact of the matter is that this actually should not be happening, but can happen in any part of our country. This time it was in Farrukhabad, and the man managed to hold on to 23 little children between the age of 2 and 10, we are told, for almost 8 to 9 hours. But the forces did manage to get them all out safely while gunning him down. Like Alok was pointing out, we are now discovering that he actually had a significant amount of ammunition inside. At one point, he did fire, and 2 personnel were injured. And so there must be lessons that we learn from this to ensure that we are also better prepared the next time. We're completely out of time on this edition of the Urban Debate. So let's go across to Avni Raja, who's joining me on the last one. And Avni, it's been a harrowing journey for Nirbhaya's mother, Asha Devi, and tonight again, she will be disappointed and heartbroken that the system has failed her one more time and justice has been delayed one more time.
Yes, absolutely, Tanvi. Absolutely heartbreaking for Nirbhaya's mother, her parents, in fact, because once again we are seeing how these delaying tactics have been used. Every single possible loophole has been used to delay justice and to delay execution. And this time round, we don't even have a date as yet. So we really don't know how long this is going to go on. And that is, of course, the big question tonight.